But over to a guest that I'm exceptionally excited to have on the show, Cam Calkoen, known as That Awesome Guy. I think you were 2020 New Zealand Speaker of the Year. And you're not just a speaker, you are a social entrepreneur, athletics gold medalist, charitable fundraiser. But one of the big things that people, as you sit here at the moment, until we really get into it, is you're born with cerebral palsy. And one of the weird things is every time we've sat down and we've met a couple of times in person, I walk away and I call my wife and I go, I've just left a meeting with Can or we catch up and I go, I have not done much in this world. No. Because every time I leave you and you talk about sky jumping and climbing Mt Kilimanjaro and traveling the world and conquering the world with what the world has given you from birth, I walk away and going, I need to step up my game. But anyway, Cam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here and it's exciting. I just love life, and you've got a choice. You wake up each day and how are you going to embrace it? Yeah. And I was born with cerebral palsy, but I really remember just thinking, how do I not let this beat me? If I want to be the cool kid at school, how do I do that? How do I be a sports champion? And just focused on all those things and the rest of the journey just unfolded.
Yeah, awesome. Let's go back a little bit. I know you got some cool, some interesting stories that went through from your childhood and how you're brought up to not be felt different. No. And how your dad had a few ways of putting some rules on you that made it that you grew up in a normal life, obviously with a condition that sometimes might not allow, or to the outside world not allow that with cerebral palsy. So, but before we get into that, I would like to just ask you, so some listeners are watching at the moment, let's go down to it. What is actual cerebral palsy and how does it affect you? And then we can go a bit into your life story.
Yeah. So cerebral palsy is a physical disability which affects the way in which messages travel around my body. So it affects the nervous system. So my voice, as you may hear, is a little bit shaky, and so too are my limbs. But what you hear is what you get. I live in a normal house. I drive a cool car. I have more friends than anyone I know. And really, if it was a magical cure to make this disappear, I would have to think twice about taking it, because every single day I pinch myself, because every single day I could see my cerebral palsy as my biggest challenge, but it's really created my biggest opportunities in life. And it's all about the nervous system, right? And I often wonder what life would be like if I didn't know I had cerebral palsy. So when I'm at home with my girlfriend who's here today, I'm walking around the house and I'm picking up a glass of water and life is just cool, right? Whereas here, I'm a bit shaky because I'm aware that people know I've got cerebral palsy. And so there's that kind of, you're imagining the perception of what someone may have of me. And that perception is, it's probably going to be a little bit shaky, a little bit wobbly. And so you start telling yourself that. So my whole life I've been challenging both myself on that of how I perceive life, and in turn inspiring others as to how they perceive life.
It's amazing. Like I said, it's your year through Cam's stories today and everything else, and I can see you brought some interesting stuff to tell us as well. Every time you stand up and you speak, and you speak one-to-one or one-to-many out there, there's just such an energy and force that you have. And like I said, it's just literally you stand there and go, if I can do it and I can conquer the world, and why can't you?
Yeah, well, it's just every single person has a dream, right? Yep. And so often we can let our perceptions get in the way. And some of those perceptions are pretty real, but so too is having a speech impediment and a physical impediment and wanting to be an athlete and become a speaker. Yeah. And I remember instead of rolling about the way I walk, I was inspired by great athletes, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Instead of rolling about the way I talk, I was inspired by people who had an accent. I remember listening to Michael Schumacher when he was at the peak of his Formula One, and he'd go in and there'd be an interview, and he'd have that really thick German accent, right? And you're having to tune in. but you do tune in because it's Michael Schumacher.
Yeah.
You want to hear what he's got to say. And so instead of seeing my voice as an impediment, I saw it as an accent. And when I started doing those things, my whole life changed and I became the speaker.
Oh, that's awesome, Cam. Let's go back to, there's a great story, the egg and spoon race. I know we've spoken about it on something else we did a few months ago, but talk me through that whole, that situation with your dad and what happened there.
Because it kind of encapsulates the parents I grew up with, right? So it gives me goosebumps. I remember at primary school putting my name down for the egg and spoon race, not really taking into account how messy that could get. You've got cerebral palsy, egg, spoon, and my dad, he called out to me and he said, "Cam, over here." And I walk over to Dad. Dad says, "My boy, you can be whatever you want to be in this world. And if you want to win today, just believe you can." What great words. And with that, he spat out a piece of chewing gum, stuck it on a spoon and put the egg on top and said, "Good luck." And not only did I finish the race for the egg intact, I was the only student to defy gravity, crossing the finish line with the egg under my spoon.
That's brilliant. I'm sure there would have been a few looks over and going, "What happened there? How did that go on?"
Yeah, how did it? But you know what? The cool thing is, because that's at primary school, right?
Yep.
And from there, I went on to play cricket. And I remember at the beginning of a game, and we were playing at a different school. So these are kids who, my school knows me.
Yep.
These are kids who don't know me. And I remember walking up to the captain at the beginning of a game, and we're at primary school still, and I said, "Look, I can't bowl the full
Distance.
pitch.
Yep.
Are you cool if I bowl from halfway?" Yeah, sweet. There was no like, "Oh, that's weird," or "That's strange," or "That's cheating." And I bowled out 3 dudes, right? And it was that whole thing of, if you're different or you've got something that people perceive as different, often you have to be the one to step outside the comfort zone and into the comfort zones of others. And that's what I did that day at cricket, right? I went up to that kid. I said, "Hey, I'm not as strong as you." I gave him a compliment, but I said why I do the things I do. And that's what I've embraced in life, whether it's building business or raising money to build a charity. Make people around you feel comfortable.
Yeah, totally. And there was, you've gone on from that. I mean, I know you talk about, being a gold medalist in athletics against something that's totally quirky and people wouldn't expect. How did that come about?
School, and there was a piece of paper circling for our students to put our name down for the athletics day, and I thought it would just go right past me, right? It's not going to stop on my desk, but it did. Yeah. And my best mate, a great guy, Lorenzo Bizzoni, he's a great Ironman, and he suggested I put my name down for the shortest event, 100 metres. And that's what I did. And I turned up and I was nervous as anything. My butterflies were flying, my knees were shaking. They always shake. But that day they were going hard out. And I didn't win that race. I lost it by a long way. But as I ran down that track, I heard people chanting my name. Yeah. "Go Cam, go Cam." And that's what life's all about. We do what we're good at. We do what we enjoy. But it's also about supporting and encouraging other people. And from that point on, I set a goal of being the best athlete that I could be. I went out, I found the best coach I could find. I said, "Hey, coach, don't worry about the cerebral palsy. I know everything there is to know about that." Yeah. And focus on what you can do. And we went on to win championships in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Sweden, throughout the world. Made it into the top 10 of athletes with cerebral palsy for the 100 and 200 metres. And it was awesome.
Amazing. It's truly inspiring when you go from there, and it just didn't, you just don't stop from there. You keep going up and keep going up. And obviously, at what stage did your speaking career pick up from all of this, right? So you're obviously going through school, you're starting to knock things out of the way that or doing things in the way you do it in your normal way, when did you pick up that going, oh, there could be more from this? I can get into the speaking and so forth. Because I know you've been doing speaking for, I don't want to say how long because then people guess your age, but let's just say it's been for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I'm proud. It's been 18 years, right?
18 years,
and there's, and I'm proud of it because I've stuck at it. I've gone through all the rejection. I've turned it into a fiction. I've found ways to go from someone that no one knows to being a highly booked speaker with celebrity speakers.
Yeah.
And I guess in growing up with cerebral palsy, communication had to be a big part of my life, because if it wasn't, and if I hid away from the world, then my life would have been quite different. So, finding ways to make people comfortable, always saying yes, even though it was challenging, but being inspired by rock stars, and being like, how do they tell a story? How does a musician tell a story? A musician can tell a story in 2 to 3 minutes, right? And they tell that story that you can hear it once, and you've heard it once, and the next time you hear it, you sing along, right? And so when I was creating the egg and spoon story, that was a kind of inspiration. It was like, how do you look back on life, create a story out of it that has meaning, that people enjoy? And then I was doing my athletics. We got some cool results. And my manager said, Cam, can you come and speak? And I was like, no way, man. Like, although I know I can do it, I'm still telling myself, you talk funny. What are you going to speak about? But he said, do one thing every day that scares you. And we went along, and I spoke at the school. It was Westlake Girls. I was 18 years of age, and it was all going great. And then halfway through, I felt an almighty sneeze coming on, and I'm doing everything I can to keep speaking and not sneeze. And then all of a sudden, my nose just exploded, and snot everywhere. Like, thankfully, it was before COVID, right? Because I would have been written off the stage. And my manager, he came up on the stage, and he gave me not a hanky, not a tissue, but his very own shirt for me to blow my nose on. And I got through it. And at the end of the talk, these girls were coming up, and students, and saying, Cam, that was awesome. I really could connect to stuff. There were so many messages on that. Thank you so much. And from that point on, I just exhausted every single opportunity I had to speak. And I eventually got the opportunity to speak at a big insurance national conference. And I turned up there, and we were world-class speakers. The venue was world-class. The audience had come to expect the best of the best. And there I was, right? I was a 21-year-old at that point. I think I'd been given a spot because there was just a bit of spare time. I think I got a little bit of money, but I was the only speaker of a conference to get a standing ovation. And that's when I say I'd outspoken the speaker, right? The speaker that was in here was out to the world, and I just entered the competition, and I thought, what's the most competitive place I could go? And that was New York. And I went off to New York, and the rest is
history.
Yeah, whatever you want to do from there.
You say you want to have the most competition, right? So you head to New York. I look at what you do, and I say the most competition you want to do is climb a mountain, and you did Mount Kilimanjaro, right? And it's like just knocking more things down as you go along the path. I know Mount Kilimanjaro, that wasn't recently, but it was in the last 2019, right? Yeah. Tallest mountain in Africa. Depending on which, it's funny, I was doing some research, right? And I was like, okay, where does it rank in the world of, height and mountains? And fundamentally depend on how you look at it, and the height of the mountain to how is that. And in any list in the world, it's top 10, right? Yeah. Some of them are as high as 6. I was reading a list just this morning saying from the climb point of view, it's actually like 4th in the world, and all this stuff. So no matter which, you look at the list and going, it's in the top 10. No matter which way you look at the list, from mountain to climb, and you did it in 2019. Talk me through, firstly, why, and then secondly, how.
I'm still trying to work all that out. But I really, you know, as a speaker, you're out there and you're encouraging people to live their dreams and don't let a little voice get in the way. And I was having coffee with a good friend of mine, Mike Allshop, and he's climbed Mount Everest and he's climbed everything. And he said, Cam, have you ever thought about climbing Kilimanjaro? And at first I was like, no way, man. Like, I've never thought about it. It wasn't part of a bucket list. It wasn't part of any list. But the reasons for saying yes became way more obvious than the reasons for saying no. And that was it. That's all I needed. I imagined myself singing Toto Africa, right? You know, that just all-time party thing. How cool would that be? And I was like, if I just do this by myself, I'm probably going to lose motivation. I'm probably going to have things that pop up or the workload is going to get busy because it was June, July, and it'd be pretty hard to say no to a big job. I'm going to go and climb a mountain. But I went out, I approached 20 people that inspire me, and I gave them that line. I said, imagine singing Toto on the top of Kilimanjaro. And from that email, 19 people said yes. And there's still that one guy that said no, and I give him a hard time. and we did it. So it's a 5-day climb, and by day 3, things are pretty gnarly. You're at 12,500 feet. Altitude sickness is kicking in. Your lungs are feeling the size of a grape. Your head feels like a peanut being squashed by an elephant. And you're saying, do I stop? Or do I keep going? And whatever we're doing in life, you know, when things get tough, it's a question we ask. Do we stop or do we keep going? And I reflected back on all those things in my life where I could have stopped, but I kept going. Where I could have said no, but I said yes. And I also imagined, would I want to come back to this point alone? I was like, no way. And so we got through it and got to the top of Kili, 19,500 feet.
But there's something you're forgetting in the story, because it's something I know about it because we've spoken about it before. Was it the last night or the last day that you had to get a head start, right?
It's a good story.
Yeah. So you're missing the story. Come on, don't keep it all to yourself. We've got to share it.
You, mate. This is I can just be like me. We can just do it. We don't need you. I need you to talk sometimes, man.
No, that's right. So let's go through it. So talk me through this. I know the situation. Was it the last day or night that you had to go?
So the final night, and you have the final camp, and you get into that camp, and it's maybe 1 p.m. and you go into a team meeting, and they say, "Okay, everyone, we're going to start climbing at midnight."
Yep.
But Cam, you're going to start climbing at 11 p.m., so 1 hour earlier. My first question was, well, why are we doing this part at night time? Because every other part of the climb had been during the day.
Yep.
And he said, well, if you saw where you had to go, you probably wouldn't want to do it. But he said, we also want to get up there for sunrise so we can see the sunrise, we can come back down, and it's going to be but next 24 hours, it's going to be big.
Yeah.
So you're going to leave an hour earlier. And so I'm like, man, but if someone gives me an opportunity, I'm going to embrace it, right? And so I took to this mountain like a steam train, and I'm running up there, and my guide, we're about an hour into the climb. Everyone else is leaving.
Yeah.
And he's saying, Cam, you want to beat everyone to the top? I was like, absolutely, man. I was like, I've invited all these people to be here. I've gone through my tough days on day 3. Some of them are going to go through their tough days tonight. If they know I'm in front of them, it's going to be a little bit more inspiration, right? And he looks up, and it was like these lights. He said, Cam, beautiful full moon. And it was. I was closer to the stars than ever before. He said, turn off your headlight. You can see where you're going. But they won't be able to see you. Because I'd look back and I'd see, 20 headlights. Yeah. They couldn't see me. I ended up getting up there and an hour and a quarter before everyone else.
So you made up.
So not only had I kept the time, I made the time.
And you could watch.
That's what you do with opportunities, right?
Totally.
You rinse everything you can get out of it.
Yeah.
And we got up there, and it was the coolest thing to be there, shaking everyone's hands. I was like, guys, I'm getting cold. It's like, it's negative something out there. It's really cold. There's a glacier to my left. I've been waiting for you guys. But we got up there. We got to work. We also got a Guinness World Record. So one of the guys, Simon Eriksson from Linkmeet, he's a big rugby fan, and he worked out that if we did a line out, it'd be the tallest line out in the world. And so we just keep doing cool stuff.
That's just amazing, man. That's just, I love it. But I love it from your guy that took you, just realized as well the person that you are, right? So I can imagine, was it the same person with you for the 5 days?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
So at the beginning of a trip, they're freaking out, man. They're like, man, this guy belongs in a hospital, right? Like, they used to sing pretty fully able-bodied people, and here I am shaking. And I remember dropping to my knees on my first day, just thinking, man, this is so cool. This is so cool. Like, I'd been prescribed about walking frame in a wheelchair as a kid, and I don't know, maybe loneliness or maybe not many opportunities. And now here I was climbing a mountain with some of the most successful people I've ever met, people who work with like Sir Richard Branson, people who have performed with Pink, Madonna, Kylie Minogue, people who 10 years ago were broke, and then that time had built multi-million-dollar companies. And we were all on this mountain together. And it was, we all shared a similar message of, at the point of getting comfortable, we push ourselves harder. And, a year later, COVID came along, and we had to do that. We had to get comfortable with the uncomfortable in order to thrive through a challenging time.
Yeah, totally. So from that, it's going on, from 2019 and, literally conquering the world. We're almost on top of the world, right? You're literally top, top couple of on top of the world. What's the next steps for yourself now? So obviously you spoke, we've come out the other side of COVID, an interesting time as we are in the world. We are, as a society, not just in New Zealand, but throughout the world, post-COVID, almost post-COVID depression, all of those challenges, all the rest of it. What's next in your pipeline of yourself, but also what you're trying to help with the rest of the world out there? I know you must have some big visions as well for not just you, but what you're trying to help other people with.
Yeah, it's an awesome time to be a speaker, right? Because people need us more than ever. We've had a gnarly 2.5 years. We've had a pretty gnarly start to this year with the weather, the world. And it's just reminding people of the power of big dreams, right? Like, dreams aren't airy-fairy impossibilities. Dreams create goals. Goals create our opportunities. And what we do with our opportunities is up to us. And when the world is closed down, you also realize how small the world is. My partner and I were in the Philippines over Christmas and New Year. It's 14 hours. You could leave today and be there tomorrow if you wanted. And so it's about embracing those opportunities to connect with the world, I've been speaking in New Zealand for 18 years, and we've been going around the world in America, but it's also about how do you start dominating in these markets now. So you stepped into these markets in order to create something back here, because New Zealanders love it when Kiwis do well overseas, right?
Yep.
And you can sell that dream, you can sell that story, but now it's time to be stepping into it, right? So how do you not just step into a new market? How do you, dominate within that market? How do you become so competitive in that market that it just blows your mind? I love it when I stand on the stage and it's people like Big Dave who you're interviewing, people who I grew up idolizing. When I talk about competition, this is what I mean. It's not about standing on those stages to beat anyone or to be better than them, but to share a space with people who know how to dream big. And when we start sharing our stories in life, people are inspired by that. People are encouraged by that.
It's so true. There's a couple of things. I first want to go back to the one thing we spoke, coming out at the back of COVID and, being speakers in an amazing time. I think one of the biggest things I picked up from COVID, I think I get this from my dad a lot. I'm quite a bit of a hermit. I can live my life with myself, my family, on my lifestyle block, and I don't need any really social interaction, right? I can feed off that. But I think one of the biggest things the world realizes is how much we crave some parts of society, and some people crave that social interaction, and just literally being in a room around people, whether you're an extrovert or introvert, we crave that energy that comes from it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing that people learn from it. And now ask Kate on the back is, as much as we've learned a way to live online and do it on online events and all the rest of it, we're still craving just to be in a room around people.
Oh man, it's the energy that you get from it, right? And that was the cool thing. So during those 2 years, and I just bought a house and everything shut down, and every contract I had turned to dust. And I was like, man, what are we going to do? And we went home and built a studio and started doing stuff online, right? A little bit. And it was enough to get us through that gnarly time. But what happened is I virtually stepped into countries that I'd never spoken to or in before. And now what's happening is those people are calling up being like, hey, we loved you online. Can you come and speak here physically? Because people know what it feels like when you've got that energy and that connection. And I questioned myself. I was like, if this is the way the world is going to go and we never get on the stage before again, am I going to still be a speaker?
Yep.
And the answer was, truthfully, I'd probably want to go and open up a cafe or a bookshop or have some kind of underground community where people do get together, because it is about people to people that you thrive on. People, when you're speaking, you've got your words, you've got your thoughts, but it's what you do in a room. It's being able to acknowledge pink elephants in the room. Yep. It's able to be real. I remember one day I was speaking and this lady, she's on the second row and she starts coughing, and there's a glass of water to my right, right? And this is the amazing thing about speaking, it's my comfortable place. I picked up that glass of water. I didn't spill a drop of it. I passed it over to that lady, right? You only get stuff like that when it's physical, when it's real. And that's what people took from that one talk of like, engage with your people fully. Don't just be out there opening your mouth. Like, look around you, take it in, and that's when the best magic happens.
It's so true. So, in the last, obviously it's with COVID not happening, but a little bit before COVID and stuff like that, when I was going through my own situation with my brain tumor in 2019, and coming off the back of that, and the year before and afterwards, I was heavily involved with crewing at public speaking events. So I had a very good relationship with Success Resources that literally owns Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Gavey. So every time they come over into New Zealand or even in Australia, I would have flown over and helped crew and that sort of stuff. I mean, David Goggins is in Australia as we speak right now. And the only reason I didn't go over is I've got travel plans in the next couple of weeks, and I just couldn't, afford to travel right at the split second to go see David Goggins or to crew. And it is so true. At those events, I've seen the big Tony Robbins virtual events with like a 20, 30, 40,000 people. And it's incredible from a technology point of view. But I've also been at the in-person events overseas, in the States, in Australia, and in New Zealand, been backstage, and me totally man crushing or, on whoever's there on stage, but actually looking close at the people in the crowd and learn the most from that, and seeing how they react into the speaker and see how their situation is to what they are doing and how they're reacting from that. And it gives you a total different perspective of, my dream goals is being able to one day say, hey, I've shared a stage with yourself, and being able to go and do public speaking events. I've done let's say a minuscule amount compared to your CV. I've done it. I've got it sorted, and I've got big plans for over to 23. But what I wanted to say was there's so much truth in seeing how the human person reacts in those situations, to be able to learn from it as a public speaker of how I might do something on stage or how you might do something on stage, because that builds that relationship. Like you said, to your glass of water, to that lady, to that situation, was a total anchor to those people for your event, right?
So many messages in it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing of when you step on that stage, you know what you're going to say, but you need to be open to what am I not prepared for? You know, I often say like I'm 80% for the speech, so that I've got that extra 20% to be able to respond to the situation. By the way, you could totally double for Tony Robbins. You've got the size, you've got a hat, you just need to replace the transformer with
they're like a clove, right?
And you just say, I've got my South African accent, but I'm Tony.
Oh, look, Calvin.
Your hands are even like massive. So
no, he's got big hands. I've
mate, come on.
I've got to meet him. He's a big man. He's a large man. Well, let's just say he's totally impressive. I totally freaked out the time to meet him and stuff. But like, there's opportunities that come from that as well, right? I've had the opportunities where to ask Gary Vee a few questions, and he literally embarrassed me in front of the entire crowd. But it's just something I go back and look at, because he used that embarrassing moment to teach a lesson. As well as I was lucky enough to have 5 minutes alone with Grant Cardone.
Yeah,
I had to shift him. From one location to another one before the next component of the event started. So anyone that's listening or watch at the moment, if you want to put yourselves around these amazing people, get involved with his events. If there's an event where there's public speaking going out, reach out to the company that's hosting and say, hey, I would love to crew, because that's where you can learn and butt shoulders with some of these amazing people.
Harder.
And that's where I learned, like I said, I had 5 minutes alone with Grant Cardone. I had a couple of minutes with Elena as well. And where I was able to sit, chat with him, I can remember it vividly, stand in the corner, chatting to him. And then all of a sudden, because we were alone, there was no pressure, no looking, and we started to speak. All of a sudden, he was telling me about these ideas that he had and what he wanted to play next and go on. And I was South African, and he spoke to me about how he wants to launch the 10X program across Africa and launch it out of South Africa. Did I have any contacts? Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, are you talking to me? Yeah. You know, holy shit, are you seriously talking? So I literally went home, reached out to my contacts, going, hey, do you guys have this? Do you guys have that? And then, messaging to Grant Cardone going, hey, here's some big contacts through my network you might be able to reach out to. Yeah. And it was like, I'm a nobody. And he's like one of the most powerful people in the world because I put myself in that situation.
But it just shows that everyone's people, right? Yep. And that's the thing, we have way more in common than what makes us different. You know, we've all got lungs, blood, heart, sense of humor. Well, most of us do anyway. And when we connect on those things, amazing things happen. Yep. So when I started and I was like, okay, things are good in New Zealand, I need competition. Mm-hmm. I just emailed lots of people throughout the world. I said, hey, I'm Cam, I want to come and speak. And that's when I started speaking with NBC Universal and Viacom International and incredible companies. And it was that thing of just reaching out to people, and then once you reach out to those people who maybe give you some advice or a tip or a token or something to treasure, follow up with those people, follow up and say, hey, I took that bit of advice you gave me, or I connected with that person, and now we're here. Yep. And chances are they'll give you another thing, and you've just got to keep embracing it.
So you obviously, been in it for 18 years now, and like I said, you're reaching out, and as you built your foundation in New Zealand, you were able to go to those next steps. We've covered a little bit on your thought pattern, but to anyone that's listening or watching going, even like myself, and we've spoken about this, going, hey, I might have a message, I would love to try it out, is, hey, someone, guy or girl, teenager or of aged, mature and stuff like going, how do I slowly get myself on a stage? What's the first few steps I should consider if I actually want to do public speaking, or I want to get involved with that world and maybe grow over 5 or 10 years to be a mainstream speaker?
Yeah, get out there as much as you can.
Yep.
Get out there as much as you can, create a video as soon as you can, And like, you know, that's what I did. I remember contacting my mate Sam. He was on radio, on TV. I said, hey, I need a cool like video because I'm contacting these people. They don't know me. A video can, you know, sell so much, and just did it. And I meet a lot of aspiring speakers these days, and they can help me. And they're getting really caught up on their niche or their core message or their branding, and all that stuff's good, but you can develop that stuff over time. What you need is momentum, and the only way in which you speak is speak. And there's schools, there's Rotary clubs, there's now social media. Like, I wish Instagram and stuff was as big as it is when I was starting, because you've got so many opportunities to tell their story. And you've got to just look at anyone, a great musician, a great athlete. They're great because they love it. You know, they don't start off getting paid millions of dollars to win a championship. They don't start off with thousands of dollars for a talk. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you'll get up there. But you've got to get out there. And then as soon as you speak somewhere, can I get a testimonial, right? And turn up there with a camera, record it, get a video, and then promote that. You know, I've just spoken with an insurance company, a real estate company. You know, no one's going to ask how many people were there. It doesn't matter if it's 5 or 10 or 100 or 1,000. You know, and just love it. Find your way of telling your story, and there's a lot of, you know, you could kind of alluded to it, of a walk away feeling, shit, what have I done with my life, right? As a speaker, one thing I have to do is I have to give myself time to stop and to reflect on life and to go, what was the messages on that? And so often we're focused on what are we doing today, what are we doing tomorrow, but we forget about the journey. So I'd forgotten all about the egg and spoon story until someone said, Cam, how did you get into athletics? I did it at high school. What about before high school? I had to go at intermediate. What about before intermediate? Did you ever do anything kind of sporty or competitive? Oh, yeah. I did the egg and spoon race, right? And your own story, your own journey, what you've told me of what you've overcome, the challenges in the last few years, the businesses that you've built, the opportunities, being in this very room with a podcast. There's heaps of stuff there. There's heaps of stories within it. But I bet you've often been focused on how do I get to that next thing, you know, rather than thinking about, oh yeah, what were the steps that got me into this podcast? You know, why did I think of doing a podcast? What inspired me to do a podcast?
I can say Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. I enjoyed these stories in there. I remember I was driving home and it was a wet, cold night, and someone said, listen to Joe Rogan, and I put it in, and I felt this feeling, and I got lit up, and I was like, I want to be that. I want to be that guy. And so I reached out and I found this incredible story in this incredible studio. And I reached out to the studio and I showed them on my dream. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to achieve. Already you've done so many more steps than what so many people do. They listen to the podcast, they go, oh, I want to be the next Joe Rogan, and they get home and they start thinking, oh man, what am I going to have for dinner? Right? I've got to do the washing, and I've got reality, and mate, I should just be happy I've got a job. And so they stop.
Yeah, totally. So Cam, obviously, to anyone that's watching or listening again, is, you know, your positivity is there all the time. Your energy is always at maximum, right? It's very rare that I get art energized in these sort of situations, or just art socially and stuff like that. But I've got to ask a question. I can't always be that perfect in your situation. I'm going to ask you the hard question. Life can't be that awesome all the time for you.
Can't they, boo? She knows, yeah. And so you, but you, life is life, and we are challenges. And you start this time of year, it's really tough time. People are going back to work. You've just come off your biggest year. I just came off my biggest year ever with everything, and you're like, man, I've got to start again. And that little voice can jump into your head and you get imposter syndrome, or you start thinking. You start thinking about what happens with my interest changes in 6 months and all of that stuff. But are you going to let that really stop you? Are you going to let that cripple you? Are you going to let it disable you? And so the things I do is I make sure I have my time to myself. And I need to get good at that because I'm a people pleaser. So you try to do everything you can for everyone else, and sometimes you forget about that stuff. You forget about actually getting your alone time at the gym. Sending out voice messages to people was something I discovered in the last 2 years, and it was awesome because I just go through I haven't spoken to that person for a while, send them a voice message, and you're not going to send out a voice message that goes, life sucks, and I'm kind of worried about the housing market, and I don't know if I'm going to speak over here. You sort of, hey, how's it going? Can't wait. I'm optimistic about the year. I get to choose what I listen to, and so it's just having those little things in place that keep it real. It's having conversations with people. It's continuing to say yes to stuff.
That's amazing, Cam. Look, just before we get to the end of today, is what's the biggest thing that you want to leave out to the world at the moment for them to think about or consider, or sort of a message out for them at the moment?
Just holding on to those dreams. Dream big, achieve more. The dream is what gives us a glimpse of light in the darkness of all the madness that is going on. It creates momentum. It creates hope. And it's also a thing to connect on. What do you want to achieve this year? It's really cool. We had a kid's birthday dinner last night. She turned 8. Everyone's just eating cake, having fun. I said, what do you want to get out of this year? People think about that. You mean I can do something cool this year? Yeah, you can. I want to, get my scouts and do awesome. Cool. And it just giving people the opportunity to say what they're into, that inspires you to think about, well, what am I into this year? And at the end of the day, I get to choose what decisions I make. I get to choose when I wake up if I want to, what way I want to feel. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean the little voice in your head's going to challenge you. But that's what awesome is all about. Awesome is awe first. And so awe is always going to be the stuff that gets your knees shaking, your butterflies flying. It's going to be the thing that makes you think, can you really do it? And then you get to the other side, get to the other side of a skydive. Man, I can't imagine doing life without doing that. You get to the other side of a speech, I can't imagine life not as a speaker. It would have been so easy not to be a speaker. You get to the end of running your fastest 100 meters. Can't believe I almost never gave you that a go because it was scary. That's what awesome is all about. So go out with this year and create your most awesome year.
That's brilliant. I don't think I can say anything more than that, Cam. That's absolutely amazing. So to anyone that's, where can we find you? I know where I can find you. Where can the rest
find me on the stage, man? Bring me on the stage. Come up to me. And then if it's not in person, Instagram, Facebook is where I do most of it. LinkedIn's pretty awesome. And we look to get more stuff on YouTube. I've got stuff there, and it's creating the opportunities to make all that a way of getting more of this. To the world, right? It doesn't matter how many stages you speak on. There's always someone in the corner of the world, of a room, that's not going to hear you. And there's more of a chance that they might hear you when it gets online. So we're just experimenting with that as much as we can at the moment.
Yeah, that's amazing, Cam. Thanks so much for that. And like I said, I always leaving the conversation with you going, I need to do more and I need to be more, because the energy and the awesomeness, as you said, the awe and the awesomeness is just on top of that. And again, as always, if anyone that's watching today take something away from Cam's story, situation, the motivation is driving out there. Please reach out to myself, reach out to Cam. I'm sure they will help, and just take a listen at it. There's nothing that's too hard in the world if you're willing to say yes. There's nothing that can stop you or block you if you just take on that opportunity. It might take some time. You might need some friends to help you along the way, but just consider it. We've been through a few years that sucks, but now's the time where we can make 2023 awesome. There's no blockers. Let's move forward and try and change the world and make ourselves better human beings and help those people around us. And as always, at the end of my show, I always say is I don't care about the subscribes and the likes and all the rest of it. I care about is you take this message that we're trying to communicate today, share it to someone that cares about it, share it to someone that can make a difference in their lives, in their year, and just learn from it. But as always, stay beautiful, stay powerful, and hope to see you tomorrow.